Hello, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday today. So how you all doing today? We are continuing with the diesel course. And hello, Isitsu. How are you? Get this stuff out of the way. Actually, see chat. All right. So we have yesterday. I actually did have a little tiny bit of time because I was in another town. And so I was able to play around with these things. So I learned a little bit more about Diesel Embed and the Diesel the custom select expression. So I think it's actually select expression and select custom expression type, something like that. Okay, so anyways, Diesel Embed. That is it kind of is exactly what it says in the documentation, even though it feels a little bit weird. Here, let's take a look at this. So if we go into our models, let's say for some reason that we want to create a pub struct, like a wrapper around like it would end up being something like a wrapper around like an I32 or a string or JSON or something like that. The JSON makes the most sense, but we decide to derive identifiable, queryable, or selectable on it. I think it's actually only identifiable or queryable. Sorry, not queryable, identifiable or selectable on this. Then that type ends up being the same type that we have here, which would make the most sense if it's a generic. Then we would, then you would just do the embed in that. That's it. That's all that it really is. So it allows you to play some fun shenanigan games. I believe mostly with generics, but with other custom types that might be like an array or a JSON object or something else. And I mean, because Rust allows you to create any kind of wrappers or anything else, it just works the way you expect it to. So that's what embed is. Now, the other one is a little bit more interesting. And so I was playing around with this in the this playground that I created. And if we look at our models, I'll let this install and run the Rust Analyzer. So you can create your own essentially DSL statement for a field here. And that's where it gets a little bit, it gets odd. It gets different. It gets weird. So I haven't actually got it to work yet because we have these very specific types that these need to come out as, right? So like species ID needs to be an I32. And so if I were to attempt to do a diesel, also I found that if I do something like this, it tells me all these things here. So I can do select expression. It won't give me auto complete. That's a little bit too much. But I could do select expression, and then we can do a DSL. And I want this from, I'm not actually sure if I need to use the generic DSL or the specific DSL from PG itself. I was playing around with both them, and I was getting errors for them. But okay, so let's say I just use like this DSL. It's a module, and so I can say like, okay, well, I want to. You're all taking types, aren't you? So that's probably not what I want then. I probably do want this DSL, and I could do select DSL helper types. That's from, yeah, that DSL. You're a module DSL. I don't know why it's, can I find D in this type? Let me save. Okay. Missing generics for select. Okay, that's not what I want. Wasn't getting this error yesterday. I was getting something else, which is interesting. If we go and take a look at the documentation, I believe if we just go find diesel two modules, DSL functions, here's like a select function, for example. Oh, you do have a type here. Oh, I see. Creates a bare select type mate with no from clause, primarily used for testing diesel itself. Yeah, okay, so that's probably not it. If we go to our modules again. They had an example. And I think it's selectable, it has them. Yeah. And so here's an example of ironically, expression type. This is a bad example because it would be inferred. So having someone that's not inferred would be it. Just SML, hello, how are you doing today? You can only stay for a few minutes, but wanted to say hi. Well, hello. Nice to say hi to you. It's been a while. Hopefully you're doing pretty good. It is cold where you're at. I know that. Let's see. DSL is not null. Okay, see, I don't know if this is what they want, and I don't know which DSL this is. My guess is it's the generic DSL. Now they have here's that is not null. The return type of expression. Yes, that's the type. It also makes me wonder, what if I don't do this here? What if I have like another thing that isn't part of the schema per se? What if I have like another string? You'll reach out after your next contract next week. Shit. Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Love to chat with you. Okay, so let's just do something like something fun. And we'll make this just a generic string. Now, you're going to yell at me because something fun is not in there. Now, can I do diesel select expression, and it is some custom select expression. Overrides the entire select expression for the given field. It may be used to select with custom tuples or specify select expression. My table sum field is not null or separate tables. Okay. Stacking, hello. How are you doing today? Okay, so I was thinking that I can do something like select represents the return type of diesel, but I mean, can I just say, hey, you're a string, and I want you to be select, let's say, meow. Comparison operators cannot be chained. Did I save everything? I did. Comparison operators cannot be chained. That's not. Oh, you're passing in here like my table some field. That's interesting. So if I do some like pet, actually it would probably be pet. Can I just do like pet name? Oh, it would be pets, plural. Still can't be that. I hate that I don't get any help with this. Does that not want turbofish in select? Oh, yeah, that is turbofish syntax, isn't it? Okay. Return type of this call is a static string. Okay, so can I make you... Cannot select pet's column name from no from clause. Pet's column name is no valid selection from no from clause. The other types implement traits, selectable expressions, join on, join on. Okay. Can I guess like maybe not a select like that? Can I do, is there a join on? So here, what if I were to do something like species? Hey, something fun is a species. I hate that I don't get any help with this. But we can maybe see back to here. So there's a select. Now it was yelling at me because it was no from clause, so I don't think that select is what we want. Now I could use literal SQL in a query builder, so I could potentially write like my own SQL query. Is there a join? Okay, so there's some inner join type stuff. Represents the return type of inner join. We have the other types of joins too, like left join, right join, inner join. We have not nullable. You can't believe we're almost in 2025 and Rust Analyzer is still so bad with macros. I know. It at least doesn't spin forever anymore. But yeah, it's terrible with macros. And I would hate to lose macros to try to make it like Rest Analyzer better. So I think the answer is just to figure out how to make Rest Analyzer work with this. And if the answer is Rest Analyzer doesn't work with that, that's asking for somebody to create a fork to add that functionality in, or maybe like a plugin system. So anything would be nice. Okay, so what if I just tried? I mean, there's this select here. But I don't think that's right. What if I tried a like an inner join? And would this be species? Now you are a struct, right? You won't tell me. Cool. Oh, it's a type. Okay, so it's source as join with implicit on clause, right hand side inner. The right hand side would be species, inner would be pet. Unknown attribute expected one of embed. Oh, it doesn't like this. Skip insertion column name. Oh, column name. Oh no, that's renaming the column name. Oh, so it just doesn't like. Okay. Did I do this wrong again? Expected value found type alias inner join. Oh, right, because it's not. This is just a type. I can't go to the definition of inner join. Source right hand side. So maybe it's the opposite. Maybe I would do like pet species, but it doesn't like that either. If I look at the source of this, do you have any like hidden documentation? No, there's no hidden documentation in here. That would be nice. Add the turbofish back and try again. Sure. Cannot use a type alias as a constructor. And Ray March, hello. How are you doing today? So we can see here that inner join, for example, is a type alias, is essentially this. Source as join with implicit on clause. You're modding your MIDI controller. Nice. I've never had a MIDI controller, but I do remember like having like looking at the ports for MIDI stuff and thinking like, oh, it'd be really cool to like have one of those keyboards or something else that I could do into the computer, but then I never like got it. They're cool. I should get one. I will eventually do it. Everybody nowadays it's all USB-C. I mean, I would imagine so, right? Those old MIDI ports, like do computers even have the old MIDI ports anymore? Okay, these are type aliases. So maybe I can't use a type alias. All right, what was open up, not guides. Let's open up this docs again. And let's go back to find the example of prelude, selectable. Okay, so we're still in diesel. Field attributes. Select expression. Okay, select expression type. Can I find you? I can. Wait, can I? Associated type? No, I don't think I can. And I want to say that this is in another crate. I think it's in a diesel. Can I go? Oh yeah, isn't there like the diesel derive crate? I think it's in here. It's like here's selectable. Same. Do you have the same documentation? Does diesel also have its own little DSL inside macros? I believe so. Which is one of the reasons why it's kind of a pain to work with. But once you know how to work with it, it gives you all the magic that you want to do with that, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm trying to do select expression, overrides the entire select expression for the given field. It may be used to select with custom tuples or specify select expression equals. Okay, so this is a different one. My table, some field is not null. Okay, so, or separate tables. So I wish we had better documentation for this. And select expression type should be used in conjunction with select expression. If the type is too complex for Diesel to infer it automatically, this will be required if select expression is a custom function call that doesn't have the corresponding associated type defined at the same path. Example use, this would actually be inferred, which is not helpful to me because I want the more complex example, right? I want one that, like, I don't know. So this is the DSL is not null. So you're basically saying this is would allow us to say that, let's imagine that species ID here is an option. If that was optional, and you're going in with the my table thing. My table. So my table would be like pets, name, like is what are my choices here? Can you tell me? No. Okay. Can I do like a join or something? Pet's name. Nothing like that. Yeah, I feel like unless those have amazing error messages, it's difficult user experience wise. I agree. And like in some ways, we get some good error handling, right? So like at this point, I get this as an error message. This is pretty good. It tells me the different things inside of here that I can put in. Okay, that's great. This is a good error message, right? So select expression. It goes away as soon as it's done though. And okay, expected equals. That's great. The correct format should look like schema table name column name is not null. Okay, so it's coming from schema table name column name. So we have schema table name column name. Okay, so I could do equals table name this would be species ID. And then I would really love to see the options that I have here. I'm trying to do Control X to look at the options, and that doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't tell me. Yeah, you still find yourself preferring a well-typed builder pattern. Yeah, I do like those a lot myself. Like, I would, unless I felt that I was really missing something, I would probably just go with SQLX Rust. But that's because that's a preference. That's something that I like. I know that a lot of people really like Diesel too, and there's also a group of people that really like CORM. And then when that new one comes out from the Tokyo people, there's going to be a lot of people that really like that as well, and it's perfectly fine. Can you build the expression outside the macro? That's a good question. Can I? So if I do, like, let's say function my select expression, and you're going to return something, right? And so if I do something like I want to return pets, species ID, dot. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now I can look at all these. Converts this potentially non-null expression into one which is treated as nullable. Okay, so let's say I do nullable. You are returning what? DSL nullable. So there's a bunch of ones here. Oh, and this is where I can have like an inner join or something else. But you have a type that I need to add in. So you want a nullable. Nullable expression. Would this be just like that? And now we say you are going to be select expression equals my select expression. Expected type found. Okay, so what if we call you? Not a type. Constant provided when a type was expected. My select expression is a function item, not a type. Function types cannot be named directly. Huh. Should be used in conjunction with select expression if the type is too complex. Oh, this will be required if select expression is a custom function call. Okay, so select expression type. So if we do diesel select expression type equals, and I guess this would be DSL nullable, something like that. The trait bound I32 is not satisfied because now you need to be an option. Okay, cool. So that works. I basically just overrode and said, hey, you are optional, even though it's not optional, so therefore I would like you to be an option. Interesting. Okay. Oh, you were thinking about building it externally and copying it in? Okay, we could probably do that also. However, this also works, doesn't it? So if I copied you in, let's take you out and try this. Take you both out. Nusika Peko, hello. I feel like I didn't pronounce that right this time either. How are you doing today? Diesel, so select expression. Okay, so if I do that, that also works. So that's also good. You didn't read the bit about it supporting functions. That probably works better. Yeah, so it looks like we can support functions, but you get the return type of the function and you put this here. So that's the only sort of like downside to that. So like either of these work, but if you use this one, you have to also have the select expression type. Otherwise, this works just fine. So you finally got a book on Python, and it's been easier than YouTube tutorials. Nice. It's good to sort of know which methods of learning work best for you. Which book did you get? I don't know too many. I don't know too many Python books. There was one I used a super long time ago called Python the Hard Way, which was an ebook, and I think I was able to do that perfectly fine up until I hit classes. And back then, I didn't understand classes at all. And so I ended up taking a course, Python for software developers or Python for programmers. And that I ended up learning that. Me or Toggle, hard to choose. I mean, why not both? You can do multiple screens, right? Multiple windows? Python crash course. Okay, that sounds good. Ultra wide, you can have all the streams. I mean, this is the main reason why we programmers want so many screens, is just for all like media that we're consuming, while to help us focus on their actual task that we're working on, right? Like that's it. Not to throw documentation on 4 different screens. And then we also have phones and potentially tablets and other things too. And those all can hold streams as well. DSA? Wait, what's DSA? I'm thinking like DSA in the context of Python. I don't know if I know that. What are you doing if you don't have a minimum of 3 screens? Exactly. Because like for me right now, I have, so like the notebook screen, my main screen here, I have the screen over there that I see chat in. Oh, data structures and algorithms. Okay, got it. You're about the DSA, do I need it? Okay, so data structures and algorithms are really, really, really important, but also at the same exact time, not super important right away. But eventually it's a good idea to start learning them. So if you're just sort of still going into the introduction journey of your of everything, then you don't really need it yet. You still can't fathom how people work in other fields with only one screen. I mean, sometimes I'll go to a cafe and I just have my notebook and that's it. I only have one screen there. So I kind of have a workflow for like, when I have one screen, and a workflow when I have all the screens. And you can sort of, like, it feels like you're stretching and you're able to like spread out, and you just throw things everywhere next to you. Yeah. Okay, so my select express. All right, so now what I would love to try to do is so this is overriding the schema. This select expression allows us to override the schema. So we have this. Now, can I add a field in here that doesn't exist? So could I do something like the species, and this would be, the species. Now you're going to yell at me a lot because you don't exist in a schema, right? Pub species. Yeah. Okay. Cannot find species in module pet. So it doesn't know what this is. It's like, it's doing macro magic behind the scenes. So what if I do another function here? So function my species join expression. And we're going to return a DSL. Okay, so can I do, like, let's say a left join? I don't know if this is going to work. So we have, I can do a left join or a left join on, or left join query source. One of those two. To be honest, I did C++ and learned object-oriented programming on university before you dropped out, so never got to fully grasp the concept of DSA. Now I'm curious. Okay, so before DSL. So when most people talk about data structures and algorithms, they actually mean a very specific thing. They mean the data structures, like the classic computer science data structures, and then the algorithms that go with those. So things like a binary tree, or a binary search tree, or a what is it called? A linked list, or a doubly linked list. Like, so you can know what those data structures are, and then can you create those data structures in code, and then finally, can you write the algorithms to use those data structures? So for example, given a tree, can you do a breadth first search, or a depth first search on that? So the depth first search would be the algorithm for the tree. The tree is the data structure. The search is the algorithm. So those are them. Like there's a bunch of them. Like there's a bunch of sorting algorithms. Like quick sort is like the fastest sort that most people would implement manually. But there's also like bubble sort, select sort, option sort, things like those. Just knowing what those are is usually good enough, because I've never worked for somebody that needs to implement those by hand. You almost always pull a library out where they implemented it for you, because, well, let's be honest, those algorithms are pretty common and standard in the real world, but are tested the heck out of in those specific libraries. But in the early days of every language, they don't necessarily, exist. So sometimes you have to implement them yourself. And then, knowing how to do that is really important. Also, sometimes it's just not worth pulling in a library. If you just want to do a quick bubble sort, it's like, okay, whatever. Just write like, what is it? Like 5 lines to do it yourself. And it works. Okay, so now I'm curious, what is diesel? Who named it? I don't know who named it. But diesel is an ORM, so a object relational mapping. So it's basically to take code, so in this case Rust code, and map it to your database, which in this also case is a SQL-based database, specifically MariaDB, MySQL, Postgres. And we're using Postgres here for this course. As for who named it, it's a good question. I don't know if they have, like, they don't really have much information on this here. But yeah, that's what it is. It's just a an ORM and query builder. All right, let's continue with this. Left join on. What should this be? So we learned last time that like knowable, and then we're giving this. So left join on. So this is the right hand side. So if the left hand side is the pet, the right hand side would be the species, right? So that would be some like species ID. I mean, would it just be that? And then I want pets. I mean, can I do a pet species ID? I don't see a left join. You're not helping me. I'm getting like weird, like red every once in a while. Okay, species ID dot. Okay, so here's a bunch of SQL like methods here. No join types. Oh, then snippets. So snippets are not what I want. Oh, okay. So this is not. Okay. So I don't think that converts it into SQL, but that's not what I want. Yeah. Okay. So I don't think that I can actually do something like this. So this comes from the table itself. Can we see what are you? So mod. Okay, so maybe you could search for columns and find it in here. So if I look for columns, okay, so like we have schema, so maybe schema. Composite type. Okay, so we have our database schema. Now from there, we're going to have a field name, and I don't know. Okay, created from the schema function. Yeah, none of these have what we're specifically looking from, but okay, we can get the table from this. That gives us a table. And from a table, can we get like the field? Don't all columns? Don't think that's what I want. this is where it gets fun because these are weird dynamic types, so generics, and we have to figure this out. Oh, you guess Togglebit is a game streamer now? Is he still playing Zero Siebert? I have that game, and I played a little tiny bit of it. Saw that it was in alpha. I'm like, this is gonna be really cool. I like this game. And then I haven't played it since because I usually like to wait until they're fully released just to have all the features. So I heard like it looked like it was a good game though. Oh, okay, hold on. Togglebit's playing Remnant from the Ashes, another game that I played a little tiny bit of and never like it was like, okay, well, this looks pretty cool. When I have time, I'll play it. And then I never did. I mean, okay, so if I'm looking at all selectable expression, yeah, I'm not liking all this stuff. We're getting into generic heck. Generic hell. Here's on table. This isn't great. I would love to see schema columns, something like that. But I don't know how to do. I don't know how to do anything else. We should become Steam friends so you can see how many Factorio hours I got. Oh no, no, that's I would. You could see how few hours I have. I played a little bit of it, got overwhelmed when I joined a friend's game, and then that like was like, okay, maybe later. Let's see. So based upon the documentation, I don't think it's actually safe. Ooh, column. So it's a trait, but what are these coordinates for column? That's weird. Okay, so we have a trait expression. Those are SQL types. And so I want a field for a table. These are just more bigger and bigger ones. Oh, wait. No, also not what I want. And that brings me back to here again. So table gives me that generic. Nope, that's standard for primitive type reference. That's not what I want. Okay, what if I look for nullable? So a trait method, nullable, off of select notable DSL. Okay, so these methods. Those don't have all of the methods that I was using. So query DSL? Yeah, I don't think this is right. And then in return types, I don't think this will be it either. Left, okay, so DSL, okay, capitalized nullable. which would be this type alias, right? Are you a type alias? No. Where am I? You are helper types. Okay. Expression helper types. So expression. I don't see a helper types. But that's the file that I'm in, helpertypes.rs. In the module expression, we have nullable, we have a whole bunch of these, which is fine. Yes, like less than, I see, okay, is there like any kind of join here? No join in here. Okay, so that makes sense. The types in this module are a shorthand for predicate type. Oh, okay. So I am still in diesel. Source expression helper types. Can I search for helper types? There it is. So there's no, well, there is inner join here in the helper types. I need more autism, clearly. So I have what is it called? Dyslexia, which is from my research is like so far the opposite of autism that it's actually on the same spectrum, which is one of those like really weird things to think about, but to the point where the opposite things affect me, but also similar. It's weird. Oh, Isitsu, you found an issue. Let's take a look at that. So this is Diesel RS, Diesel. Okay, we've been to a few of these issues, right? No, this is the website one. I need to go to. Diesel RS, and in Diesel, it's issue 16. Can I just search for 16? No? Okay, fine. Diesel, was it issues 16? Name it. I'm not, oh, this is talking about where we got the name from, right? I'm not pushing to Chris AO without a name. Active Discord. Diesel came to mind as an idea tonight. That one ORM for Rust. Okay. Wow, so many of these are terrible. Okay, so it sounds like just Diesel appeared in Esgriff's head, and that's what it was named. I don't know that word comorbid. Denoting or relating to diseases or medical conditions that are simultaneously present in a patient. Oh, it's basically, it's a combination. So like it can be both at the same time. Yeah, that makes sense. I think like a lot of times as time goes on, people realize that things are a lot more combined together than they used to be. I don't do you all remember back in the day it was there was ADHD, then it was ADD, and then there was like another ADD variation, and then finally they settled on whatever the modern one is. The problem is that I don't stay on top of it, and so I don't remember. Like I constantly go back and forth and forget like what is the appropriate terminology now, because it's changed over the years as people actually figured out what this all is. Higher likelihood of being diagnosed with many things if you have autism. So I don't have any evidence of this, but I was chatting with some other friends that do have autism as well, and they we were talking about that if you're neurodivergent, which I think is also like another relatively new term for you have any one of these things, comorbids, then you're more likely to easily make friends with and want to hang out with people that also have comorbids, right? Like even if you don't have the exact same ones, if you're sort of like in this neurodivergent state, you sort of like get attracted to other people with neurodivergence. And so I found that that's really interesting. So like if you're hanging around with somebody and you really like them and they're like very autistic, then it's like, well, maybe there's a reason why you like them, and maybe you're with that autism too. Third type is a subtype that happens nearly exclusively in person with autism. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I haven't really stayed too much on top of this. Cool. This is a good find though, Isitsu. Fun fact, I don't know if it's an autism thing. I don't know if it's a dyslexic thing. I don't know if it's just a neurodivergent thing. A lot of times there's people who have that sort of like the ability to ignore time in conversations. So I think that there's a reason why like some streamers are really good at like, oh, just talking about this, oh, chat, back to talking about this, going over to chat. It's not necessarily like an ADD type thing. It can also be oh, I can talk about that and then have a like another conversation or topic going on. It was like a different thread simultaneously, and I just switch back and forth between them. And for me, it's like, oh, everything's just fine. If you're not like used to that, or your brain doesn't work that way, I can totally see that just is like, what the heck is going on? This is horrible. Okay. Anyways. Is there anything about select expression here? No, there is not. So here's my thoughts about this select expression type thing. Select expression is for overriding types or something else when it comes to your fields in a model. But it's not for some like extra really cool, amazing, awesome stuff like adding in a join, or like, I mean, perhaps you can abuse the system and like do some crazy stuff, but I don't think you're supposed to do anything like that. Now, that being said, can we abuse it? Could I say, like, we have you're yelling at me. I'm trying to like, hey, I want to join with you. What if I were just to say that you're a species like that? Oh, but you're not going to see. I think this has to be a DSL species. Because if I were to try to like actually do a full query, oh, but I can't because I don't have like the ID that I'm going on. It's like, how would I know what to join on? Like if I were to do something crazy, like let's say I did species, species, right? I have species. Yeah, I have create schema. Oh, species, it would be species DSL, species, select, species as select. So give me all the species. Give me the first. Oh, then I would need a connection. So I would need to do a connection type thing. So that's not something I have here. I would also need to get the environment variable for that, which I don't have. So if I like connect to the database, this is terrible. This is a terrible idea. Okay, so if I have that, we get the database URL, unwrap you, and then we hand in the DB here, and we unwrap you. Okay, so that gives us the species coming in. So now could I say diesel select expression type is just species, and diesel select expression is my species join expression? No, because now up here you say trait bound species diesel expression is not satisfied. It needs to implement expression. Okay, that's what the problem is. It needs to implement expression, and it does not. Yeah, surely that is no longer an expression, and it won't work. Right. What? Stop. Do what I want. Ooh, type, SQL type. Wait a second, is that it? Trait expression only has this. The type that this expression represents in SQL. Typed expression type. Oh, interesting. Typed expression type is a marker type. Possible types for SQL type. Huh, okay. So SQL types and that kind of thing. So yeah, all right. So I could do. I don't. Okay, so I think I want to say that it's confirmed. I'm not 100% convinced, but I am like 90% convinced that I can't do really cool stuff like that, but I can do stuff like this. Like these are just fine. So I can't do my join expression, but I can do this select expression where we state that you're now nullable, right? Like I can say, hey, you need to be an option, even if maybe you don't actually need to be an option. Something like that. But okay. Either way, these are out of scope for the lessons here. So we're going to mark that we've done that. And then we also want to open up models. Do we have express? Oh yeah, so embed. Okay, so embed embed allows us to use a struct, use a type that implements selectable. The implement selectable itself. As it be, this is an advanced feature and therefore is out of scope for this this course. Okay, and then these are also out of scope. Okay, so select expression allows us to override the schema, the schema file, the schema types, the schema that Diesel automatically generated for us. For example, we can set a nullable field to not be an option and provide a default value at runtime. That being said, this is an advanced feature and is out of scope for this course. All right, and then another one here. All right, so this is used exclusively with the select expression field macro. It is out of scope for this this lesson, this course. Okay, and then I want to say oh, that's not going to help. So associations have okay, and that's it for Kirby models. All right, so I think that's what we got here. Toby, hello, how are you doing today? Yeah, Diablo is right. We are working on a Diesel course, and Diesel is an ORM for Rust. What is Diesel? Only one on your mind is for cars. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There is this really bad habit that a lot of modules or a lot of libraries or something are really terrible discovery because they have names that are like associated with very common other items. Like diesel, like for example, if you just walked up and said like, hey, I need some diesel, and it's like, okay, For your car? And we're like, oh no, for my Rust project. He's like, for the car? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Diesel is an ORM. It's a library or framework, depending upon our definition of framework or library. And it is specifically for the Rust language for connecting to SQL-based databases. Worse, the projects that have punny names. Oh, yeah. If any of you have used Love 2D, which is a gaming framework for Lua, they have the both best and worst at the exact same time sort of like naming scheme for everything. Some of them actually are even potentially not safe for work. It's just you're going to go launch your rocket either with Space Age DSL or with Diesel. But Diesel, I don't think makes good rocket fuel, so it'll probably take a lot. Rust is also a name that's confusing as hell for people who don't know it's a programming language. Yes. And then a lot of people will say like, well, Rust is a stupid name. Like Rust is what happens when metal is oxidized and, you know, it ruins things, right? Like it actually hurts whatever it's on. At which point it's like, well, actually, little known fact, Rust is based upon a mushroom colony or like a series of mushrooms that's very hardy. And it's like, okay, also terrible name. So yeah, I totally agree with that. No, Vince, oh, you're doing Rocket. Oh, you're doing Rocket. Yeah, speaking of project name discovery, totally, yeah, definitely. As much as we may like dislike projects like AWS, it's like nobody else has that. Like everybody knows what you're talking about when you say something like AWS. Okay. All right, let's read through this and see what we missed. Rust as an oxide is hilarious. It's a bare metal pun Oxide Computers uses. Wait, is Oxide an actual computer system? Because that would be more funny, right? Because then, yeah, you're right. Like it would be basically Rust going into an area that it's not really meant to be. Because then it's not only misunderstanding the name of Rust, it's also encroaching on a completely different system and now being basically it's just being confusing. Great, wonderful. All right, let's read through this. A new age IBM 70s mainframe-esque design. Nice. Wonderful. Okay. Well, let's read through this. Diesel models. Objectives. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to create a Diesel model in a model file, associate a model struct with a row in the database, set up a model to be queryable, set up a model to be selectable, associate a model with another model. Code. You can find the code for this lesson on GitHub. The models.rs file. The schema file that is auto-generated by Diesel stores information about the database and each table. However, we can't use these structs directly in our code. We'll need to create our own structs that are associated with the database tables, which we call models. Let's begin by creating a models.rs file in the source directory. We'll be using the structs and other files, so we'll need to make this a public module in the lib.rs file. Then we can begin creating structs to match our database schema. We have two tables, so we'll need two structs. Before we begin writing our species struct, let's take a look at the species table definition in the schema.rs file. Okay, so here's that. We can see that we have two fields that we need to model, the ID and the name. Both are very much not Rust types, but we can look up what each of these types represent in the Diesel SQL types documentation. So that actually goes to, type varchar. The ID has a type int4, which unfortunately isn't a standard numeric type in SQL. However, we can search through the Diesel documentation to find the int4 type. If we navigate to the above Diesel types page and look at the source code, we can then search for int4. We'll see an entry where int4 is mapped. So I go directly there. I wonder if that actually works the way I expect it to. It does. Okay, perfect. Int4 is mapped to integer. Then we can go back and look at the documentation for integer and see that it is mapped, see that it is an I32. Next, we need to figure out what a varchar is. Following the same method, we can see, okay, so varchar, capitalize the C. Following the same method, we can see that a varchar is a string. Now we have enough information to create the species struct in the models.rs file. Okay, so species, ID, and name. We haven't finished with this struct though yet, as we need to tell Diesel more about how to map the struct to the table itself. We can do this with a series of derive macros. First, we'll start with debug, because it is just helpful in case we want to print out this model. Next, we need to choose which derive macros specific to Diesel we want to add in. We can see a list of possible derive macros in the Diesel Prelude docs. First, we'll implement the identifiable derive macro. This macro tells Diesel that our struct models a single row in the table. Looking at the documentation, there are some helper attributes that we may need to use. Let's go over these helpers for identifiable and see if we need to use them. So we have Diesel table name, path to table. This helper is needed if Diesel cannot figure out what the table name is. By default, it takes the struct name, in this case species, lowercases it, and adds an S to guess the table name. This means that it will assume that our table name is species, which is incorrect. So we need to use the table name helper to set it. So Diesel table name equals species. Next up is Diesel primary key. By default, Diesel will guess that the primary key is a column named ID. In this case, that is correct, so we don't need this helper. Finally, we have column name equals some column name, which allows us to override the name of a column and turn it into something else. Again, we don't need to do this, so we'll ignore it. Putting this together, our species struct looks like that. We aren't finished with species though, as we have a few more derive macros to add to it. Next up is the queryable derive macro that tells Diesel that we want to be able to query this table. And of course, this derive macro also has one helper that we want to consider. Diesel deserialize as is a field macro that allows us to create custom types that the .into method will be called at runtime to convert the type from the database to whatever type we want. Check out the code in the example documentation linked above, as it shows a really nice way to convert strings from the database into lowercase as the query runs. We don't need to do that though, so we'll ignore it. Lastly, we need to add the selectable derive macro in order to allow us to select fields when querying the table. Again, we have some helpers that we want to consider. Diesel table name path table is a repeat from the identifiable derive macro helper. Since we already added it, we don't need to add it again. Check for backend is technically optional. However, as the documentation states, if we set this, we'll get much better error messages. Therefore, it's recommended to set it. Okay, so I think we'll set it to, let's go find this here. There. Diesel column name equals some column is another repeat, and we are ignoring it just like before. Diesel embed allows us to use a type that implements selectable itself. This is an advanced feature and therefore is out of scope for this course. Diesel select expression allows us to override the schema that Diesel automatically generated for us. For example, we can set a nullable field to not be an option and provide a default value at runtime. That being said, this is an advanced feature and is out of scope for this course. Select expression type. This is used exclusively with the select expression field macro. It is out of scope for this course. That leaves us with the model struct. I feel like this is not the right words. That leaves us with the finalized species model struct. Okay, and there we go. Let's repeat this for the table pets. Derive, debug, identifiable, queryable, so we do all the same thing. Notice that we don't need the table name helper, since if we lowercase the struct name and add an S, we get pets, which is the name of the table. Last fed is an optional field, so it gets an option here. However, because the type is a timestamp Z, we need to figure out what that turns into. Following the same methods as before, we can see that we have two choices, using the time or chrono crates. In this case, we're going to use the chrono crate. Therefore, we need to add the chrono feature to Diesel in the cargo.toml file. According to chrono documentation, datetime includes date, time, and time zone info. And naive datetime just includes date and time. While it sounds like we would want to use datetime, we would need to pass in the time zone struct. Since time zone is out of scope for this course, we're going to use the naive datetime. With this decision, we can now set the appropriate type for the last fed field. Pub last fed, option, naive datetime. However, we aren't done yet. We have a relationship to consider. We know that the species ID field means that there is a relationship, and we'll probably want to do a join at some point. Diesel doesn't know this unless we tell with a derive macro and some helpers. We can use the associations derive macro. Unlike the other derive macros, the associations has a required helper. Belongs to tells Diesel which table this table okay, this tells Diesel which table is, the parent. The parent of the struct. Or the model. The model, in this case, pets. For example, the pets table is a child of species, so it gets the belongs to helper. This makes the helper, Diesel belongs to species, all that we need to tell Diesel that is related to the species table. Note that we don't need to tell it about the species ID field explicitly, because by default, Diesel assumes that the foreign key is the parent table name in lowercase with _ID appended to it. Table name is yet another repeat. We still don't need this. Column name is the same as another column name, rename helper. We also don't need this. And that's it for queryable models. We'll return to this file later to add some specific insertable models, but we'll do that in the appropriate lessons. Okay, I think we're good to go here. Let's close you, and so we have model struct, creating the model struct, include what the identifiable macro is. Good, we got that. So there we go. All right, so that brings us to diesel CRUD operations with a create. And I think these are going to have to be separate sort of like lesson files because that's going to get really, really large and really long. Like just create an insert. We have to update the model file. We have to create probably a query for that. We already have a connection. And I think we'll create something in like the bin, the bind. All right, what did I miss? They use REST for firmware. Oh, in Oxide? Oh, that's fun. I guess then there's a connection. Varchar is a digital Pokemon obsessed with written words but cannot read and is also limited to 255 characters per statement. Right? But sometimes only like 2 characters. Like it depends. But in Rust is just text because that's all Varchar is behind the scenes, which is fun. Also in I don't, for those of you who have not played with SQLite has no idea of what varchar is. Like it accepts the type when you set the type to be a varchar, but if you try to limit the varchar to like, 10 characters, let's say, it doesn't. There's no limit for the number of characters in a varchar. It is essentially an alias to text, which is fine, but it's it can cause some confusion if you're assuming that you can rely upon the database to restrict the number of characters that you're inserting in. 255 is a suggestion, not a rule. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's a suggestion that SQLite just drops. It doesn't. It's like, whatever. We're too light for that. Okay, create insert. Now, how am I organizing this? I do have this stuff under, we already have things under our bin here. So we have bin for run migration, source bin, run migration, source bin, run seeds. What's that run migrations thing? Did we create this? Oh yeah, we did. Or running migrations automatically. Yeah. Okay, so we actually do. We did create this. Let's also. Okay, nothing new here. So what I'm thinking is that we create a thing for creating and inserting a pet and species. Most implementations have no hard max. SQLang specification says something like 256 with null is minimum. Postgres, if specified, the length n must be greater than 0 and cannot exceed 10,485,760. So isn't that text? Like, doesn't text also, that's like the size of text, right? Which is therefore the same thing. I know that you can also say something like varchar and then not call the varchar as a function, because I've seen that before where it's a varchar. And it's like, okay, well, what are you attempting to set that to? Which is also fun. Okay. I'm getting winter weather advisories. Oh, it raised in temperature a little bit. It's still below freezing, but that's fun. Okay, we've got about an hour left. Let's start working on create and insert. So I'm going to call this diesel diesel insert seems appropriate. Let's see. Inserting to the database with diesel. All right, so objectives first. Okay, well, I guess create a insert struct, and then insert data into the database. I mean, pretty simple, right? It being 2 to the 20th is an implementation detail. I guess, yeah, that's what happens when you have like standards, right? The standard just basically says, you can do whatever you want. But if you say you do whatever you want, then all the databases do whatever you want. Okay, sort of like returning being something that you kind of expect that your database can do when you insert. Ooh. Return, so like get the full, I guess like get return the ID of the item inserted into the database. Okay, I think that is another one that reminded me. Postgres has bigger types but doesn't auto promote. So if you don't state what the type is, it will eventually just say, nope, you're done. Goodbye. Okay, so let's actually get this into GitHub here. So come into here, go into source, go into bin, and let us touch. We'll call this like create pet. Create pet.rs. Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's like, oh, we're probably gonna do both, right? Like we're gonna, because I want to insert both a species and a pet potentially. So we'll do create species.rs. Okay, so push that up. I want to go take a look at that right away. There. Okay. You can find the code for this lesson. Create species. There. think I'll just leave it that for right now. Okay, so creating a or inserting into the database. Okay, so PG has bigger type. Oh, you're talking about like does something like stores as a sidecar file so it doesn't pollute the database on disk. Forget what the type name is. Goes up to 2 or 4 gigabytes. It's not a blob. That's a SQL. That's a MySQL thing, right? I do know what you're talking about, but I've never used it myself because I've always just handled that separately, where I just like store the files somewhere else, like usually S3 or an image handling site or YouTube or something like that, and then I just throw the metadata of like here's the URL to go get that, here's the name of it, here's the other stuff. I throw that into the database instead, which those then end up being just simple strings. Okay, so inserting into the database. What do we want to do here? We want to, okay, so first off, all right, so we can't really insert two things at the same time, so we're going to insert one. So let's inserting a species. Generally, that's the preferred way. So yeah, talking about the just like store it yourself separately elsewhere. Yeah, I like that a lot more too because you have more control over it. You know what's going on and you can control exactly what you store. Asitsu, your editor has a bug where it auto imports the wrong import when I press tab enter and is driving me mad. Command plus dot works to import. Oh, interesting. That sucks. Wait, which editor are you using? You're using Zed, right? Someone was using Zed recently. But yeah, that's a terrible bug. Yeah, Zed. And also Amit. Hello. How are you doing today? I have Zed on my list of things to check out. I have a lot of I was going through that list last night. I have a lot of things on that list. Okay, so inserting new species in the database. So for this lesson, okay, so for this lesson, we're going to create a new bin command for inserting a species and then a species and then a pet into the database. Since the pet needs to know or is a child of the species, we need to insert the species first. We're going to create a new file in the bin directory called create species .rs and okay, so let's go ahead and set this up. So I created you there. All right, so we have our main function here. Ahmet, hi there. I'm visiting family in hometown. Nice. Well, welcome from wherever your hometown is. Craziest thing I saw was jars in those, then executed via the Java and SQL feature in Oracle. That is that breaking my brain. Like to me, that's like one of the worst possible things you can do. No, just don't. Like I already thought that just storing HTML in the database to return that is bad enough already, but people do that. And storing like images and binary data in the database is also pretty bad. Don't do that either. But this, no. You can use other languages than SQL in some SQL databases. Yeah, that's Oracle SQL. Oracle SQL, yeah, okay. Well, they just don't, if you don't pay for Oracle SQL, you don't have to worry about even having access to those features. So just don't do it. Oh, you have a 4,000 foot? 4,000 foot for the meter mountain? It's how you became a snowboarder. I have never gone snowboarding before. It's I've always wanted to do some snow sports. And I live in an area where there's tons of snow, and lots of snow sports. I just never went up to the mountains to go do it. Oracle turned Oracle into basically an app server. It's wild. I can imagine that. Also, I don't want to ever have to deal with that myself. Asitsu, time to go. Well, thanks for hanging out, Asitsu. Have a great rest of your day. Them buying Sun wasn't an accident. Yeah, that's definitely true. They made so much money from Oracle and Java. How many of you all remember Sun? Like, were active in a community when Sun was around? Sun was a great company. I never worked for them, but like we used some of their products. Let's see. Okay, so function main. You remember them? Nice logo as well. Oh yeah, definitely nice logo. And we would not have gotten JavaScript had Sun not sort of done this shenanigan type thing with Mozilla to create JavaScript sort of behind the scenes. They did some weird trademarky stuff with it. They also Java became great. Like the entire confusing name between Java and JavaScript was fully on purpose. They did that all on purpose. You never got to have a Spark. We had a couple Spark systems. I logged into a few of them and got confused when I tried to run normal commands because they were close but not exactly the same. It was weird. Luckily, I was not a sysadmin for those systems, but I worked with the sysadmin for them. He was awesome. Okay, so function main. So the first thing is we have to get our connection. So all right, so we'll do this. Since the pet is doing create species, first thing we need to do is get our is like set up. Okay, is set up the basic main function get a connection, and get a connection to the database. Okay, so first thing we need to do is set up the basic main function and get a connection to the database. So we're going to go ahead and that's in here. All right, so connection. So let's we have to do the .env. Okay, that. Env var. Okay, our connection is the database, so we'll call this like DB connection. What did I call it? Do I not have that? I must not have that. What did I do here? I just established a connection directly. Huh. That's a choice. Okay, establish database URL. Okay, so that gives us our database connection. Okay, so we're ready to create. So there we go. This is a great start, but we need to get access. We need to get the new species data in order to create it. Since we only have a name, only need that. Obviously, hard coding the name is possible, but not a great idea. Let's interactively ask the user what name they would like for this new species. Okay, so that means doing a print line. So I'm actually going to create this into a new function. So function get new species name. We're going to return. So I could do an error here, which I have an error result, so we can just use you. And then you're going to be a string inside of here. Okay, so get new species name. Illumos has entirely modernized Solaris. I'd never used Illumos. I haven't heard of them. That's pretty cool. But like at this point in time, there's no reason for me to ever do anything with them. So one of those things where it's like, oh, that's cool. I'll never touch it. Okay, get new species name. What are we going to do in here? So first off, we need to ask. So print line, what, enter a species name. Enter species name and press enter. I mean, depending upon if you're on a Windows or Mac keyboard, I guess I'll just say enter there. Okay, so enter species name and press enter. So we do that. So, okay, that's great. We can call this, right, to test it out. So we'll do let new, the new name is going to be get new species name. We want to unwrap you. Guess we can expect you. And this will be error getting, string you. Error getting new species. Okay, there we go. There are still reasons sometimes you need an open source operating system that isn't BSD, that also isn't Linux. I mean, I guess that's true. And I'm curious because I have this belief that as companies want to use AIs more and more often, but don't necessarily want to use cloud-based AIs, they might start switching back to self-hosting hardware for it, because you need a ton of either GPU memory or just CPU power to run a modern, like, a large language model or some other AI type stuff, especially if you're using agent-based things. And it might make sense to amortize the amount of amortize the cost of AI based hardware into just your own stuff that you have. And then you run it as often as you want. You have to pay for, like, oh, we ran like something for 24 hours a day. It's like, okay, well, you don't have to pay ginormous fees to AWS for that, which could be horrific, or a lot of these other ones. Or maybe you just want to keep all the data yourself because you have some government contracts or something like that. I wonder if, like, as people switch to using more self-hosted hardware, they might start using something like, the equivalent to Solaris again. Remember the Oxide computer you mentioned? Their services hypervisor, whatever OS uses Solaris, it's called Helios. I've heard of Helios. I've never used it, but I have heard of that. That's cool. Now I know where that name comes from in my mind for the operating system. Cool. Okay. Again, another one I'm probably never going to touch. Okay, so print line, enter a species name and press enter. Oxide computer, look at that. Okay, hold on. Let me take a look. So oxide.computer. No cables, no assembly, just cloud. Is this self-hosted cloud? that's a good looking computer. That's pretty cool. Self-hosted mainframe, more or less. Yeah. I mean, they're nice looking. If any of you have never done it and you get a chance to go into a server room and just like look at the racks of computers, especially if it's like, if they expect guests, they usually set it up to be a lot nicer looking than if they're just sort of private server rooms. It's a treat to go in and take a look at them. Like all of the ones I've been in, they were happy to let people come in and take a look at them, but pictures were never allowed. So I couldn't share any of them with you. People forget that cloud is just someone else's computer. Yeah, that's very true. The way I always described it as, it's someone else's, well, it could be your computer too. It's generally a computer where you can't necessarily point at a specific computer and say, that's where my code is. Like that's where it's running, because it might be on that one, but it might be on that one over there. It might be on that one over there. It's sort of like, it's around. Like, you generally know which, like you might even be able to figure out which building it's at, but at that point, it gets a little bit hazy as to where exactly your code is running. Okay, so enter species name and press enter. So obviously you're not gonna be happy, and so I want to do a standard. I need standard IO. Where's that from? I always forget which, like where it's what the name of this thing is from for like the requesting like interaction. Plus, like every language is different the way that it names it. What is it called? Oh, I need the string first, don't I? And then it's going to go into it. I don't think it's file. It's not file system. Is it an OS? I didn't see anything else that like made. Oh, could it be IO? Okay, so OS IO, probably not FS. Not ops. So if I do OS, I don't like that. IO, standard in. Read all bytes into end of file on the source, appending them to the buffer. Okay, so I want to read until end of file on the source. I could read a line, read to end, or read a string. Let's try read a string. You're going to take a string. So let's do a let. This is going to be like the name, which you're going to have to be mutable. So name equals string new. We read UN, so you're a mutable reference to name. And you can fail. So this is reading name. And then we return the name. An okay name. Forgot the question mark. Okay. All right, so centered, read a name, we got that. Okay, so we get the new name here, and let's just print line and make sure that we get this out. So print line of new name. Okay, so if we run this, so if we do a cargo run bin, you're behind me, create species. Enter a species name and press enter. So I think we already have dog and cat. So what's another, we can do bird. Bird is not a name of the species, is it? But whatever. You did not exit. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so read a string is not correct. I want one that what is it? Still diesel. Standard in. Oh, read line is probably what I want then. Read line. Okay, so if we do this again, bird. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay, so I read the line. That gives me a result. I would love to then. This probably has the new line on it. Plus, if I give like some spaces on it, that could be weird stuff. We'll probably want to trim that before I send this over. So let's trim you, which gives me a stir. And let's to lowercase this, which gives me back a string again. I think that's fine. Okay, so okay, let's interactively ask the user what name they would like for this new species. There we go. We ask for the species name. Okay. We have the name. Let's see. Oh, I guess one more thing. Let's ask for the species name, and then we can call this function to get the name in to get the name. So I want to like update main, or I think I might want to just continuously show all of main. Okay. Great. We have the new, excuse me. We have the new name. If we want, there is a problem using the model that we created. Okay, there's a problem using the model we created for species because it is not. Oh, because it assumes that we have an ID already. We don't. So therefore, we need to create a new model or a new struct in the models file to help as a helper, I guess, like as a helper that will be insertable. Oh, and I already have this one here. So create species. So if we just do this, oh, stop. There you go. Just like the other models, we'll need to set a derive macro to tell Diesel that this struct is insertable into the database. We'll use the insertable derive macro. And like the others, we'll use the attributes for this. We'll use the table name. We'll use the table. We use the table name, and yeah, that's it. Okay, so and like the others, we'll use the table name. Oh, interesting. Skip insertion. Skips insertion of this field, useful for working with generated columns. So I could use the other one and set it to be insertable, but then also skip insertion on ID. I don't like that though. So I'm going to skip that. Okay, so like the others, we'll use the table name helper. Since Diesel will not be able to guess what the appropriate table this struct is associated with. Okay, and that leaves us with this now. Okay. Debug and insertable, table name equals species, struct create species, name string. Now we can create an instance of this struct in our create species bin file. Okay, back to you. So now we can say Okay, let new name. I want let new species equals create species. Name is a new name. Okay. St1EE, hello. How are you doing today? Is you smart? I don't know. Maybe, possibly, perhaps. Can we even call ourselves smart and still be smart? It's a philosophical debate, I think. Okay, so can't print line new name anymore, but we've created this new species. Okay, so let's add this in. Okay. I did that thing again where I hit the Q. Not what I wanted. Okay, so now we can create an instance of the struct in our create species bin file in the main function. Okay, so we've got that. Now continuing on. Ahmed, yes, we do. I call myself smart all the time. Well, okay, well there we go. Now we okay, so we created the instance of this. Finally, we can insert this into the database using a method created automatically for us by that insertable derive macro. Hold on. Okay, so using a method. Okay, so using the it's like insert as or something. So we can do new species insert into. Okay, using new species insert into. Insert into. This function takes a table, which we can get from. All right, so what do we have in here? So we don't have the schema, so therefore we want to use the model probably for the table. And so I can do species models table like that. And then let's do, yeah, then we execute. Okay, finally we can insert this into the database using new species insert into. This function takes a table which we can get from the model. In this case, that. Finally. So, okay, so let's remove this finally. So we can insert this into the database. We can insert the new species into the database using new species insert into. This function takes a table, which we can get from model, in this case, species table. And then I guess now we can do finally we call the method. So I don't want, execute. Let's just start with execute. So we execute and pass in DB connection. And then we will expect inserting new species into the database. Okay, finally we call the method execute DB connection to, well, execute to run the query and insert the species into the database. Don't forget to handle the returning result. In this case, a simple expect or unwrap is fine. Okay, so then all together, this looks like that. Oop, oh, there we go. Okay, so new species, insert into, execute, expect. Let's run this, and we can, let's run this and create a new species. So we already have dog and cat, right? So, and I know like dog is not really a species, but close enough, right? So let's run this and create a new species. Shell. Okay, so you're saved, right? And then we can connect into our database here, and we can do a table species, and we can see, right, we have cat, squirrel, and dog. So, what's another one? So we have cat, squirrel, raccoon. We can do raccoon. So if I do, I want to get rid of that warning. Okay, there we go. Enter a species name and press enter. We'll do raccoon. There we go. And then up here, we can do table species, and we can now see raccoon. Okay, so create species, enter a species name, and press enter, raccoon. We've created a new species in the database. We can double. Okay, so we've created a new species in the database. What if we wanted to get the ID or even the full species object back? Or even the full, okay, let's just do, what if we wanted to get the ID of this new species? What if we wanted to get the ID of this new species and print it out? And print it out after it's been created. We can do this with a couple changes to the insert into the insert into sort of like chain. Okay, so we will be adding in, so insert into before execute, we'll add in returning and returns. Okay, so you want whatever we have, right? So this is going to be, we need the schema, don't we? Schema species ID. So the schema species ID and then execute changes to load returns a vector. So actually I want to get result, which is a single thing that gets us what we want, right? Type annotations needed. So we need to tell you that it's going to be a single ID I32. Okay, so we can do this with a couple changes to the insert into chain. We'll add a I guess let's show what we added first. Okay, so we added a returning method along with the column name that we want back. Because we only care about because we only care about the ID, we have a single item. We have a single item here. However, we can request multiple. Okay, so we can request multiple. We can request multiple things, multiple fields back at the same time with an. Now, I think your suggestion is if we look for returning. You didn't say here. I think returning allows us to request, is it an array? It's either an array, a vector, or a tuple, or a combination, like could be any of them. Can we actually see returning E? Wonderful. That's what we want to see. Okay, well, let's just try it. Let's find out what our limits are. Returning. So we have that. Let's also do a returning. So let's say I want to get ID and the name back. So what if I do an array? So we do schema species ID schema. Oh, this is not going to work, is it? Because they're different types. You're going to say, hey, you can't do this. Expected value found module schema species How did I go up there? Change that. Okay. Oh, wow. What did I do? There. Take you out. Okay, so you're going to be upset because mismatched types. Expected ID found name. So 2 different types. So we can't use an array. I won't be able to use a vector because the vector needs to be the same type too, which means you must be a tuple. So we can do that. Now we can get the tuple. Get result, DB connection. Oh, the type here is different. So instead of that, now it's going to be a tuple of an I32 and a string, like that. And we can do let created species equals you. Get result. Why won't you tell me what you are? This is the problem about macros. Like I tell you right here, figure it out. You can totally do it. But okay, can I? Unknown, of course, of course. Let's see. So if I were to print line, got back. Created species. Let's just debug to print this out. It'll be fine. No errors. I should be able to run this. Create a new species. Okay, so we have cat, squirrel, dog, raccoon, and what's something else? We have squirrel, raccoon, red-tailed hawk. Got back 5 red-tailed hawk. Okay, so that works too. So, okay, so we added a returning method along with the column name that we want back. Because we only care about the ID, we have a single item here. However, we can request multiple fields back at the same time with a tuple. For example, that. Okay. For example, returning schema species ID, schema species name. Excellent. How long do I plan on streaming? Oh, it is 11:58. Not very much longer. I need to go grab lunch. So very, very, very shortly. I think what I want to do is just get this to the code, like put in the full code here, and then we will finish this up tomorrow. So yeah, not much more time. Okay, so we had a returning method along with the column name we want back because we only care about the idea. We have a single item here. However, we can request multiple fields back at the same time with a tuple. For example, dot returning schema species ID, schema species name. Yeah, I said another hour at 11 o'clock, which it's now pretty much 12 o'clock. So I think I was correct. I might have been like 11:05 or so. Time is flying though. Or maybe it's going slowly. I'm not sure. One of those two things. Okay, so we added a returning method. Finally, we can print out the message with the ID to the terminal to inform the user that everything worked as expected. Okay, so then that's where we have this print line. So let's go ahead. I'll comment you out, leave you in. And we created new species. Okay, so the problem is here, I lost create species, new species. Okay, so created new species with ID. Created species. There we go. So you should be happy. So if we run you now, okay, so we have red-tailed hawk, we have Oregon junco to follow along with the birds. Create a new species with ID 6. Excellent. Okay, so then let's do the entire file. Finally, we can print out a message with ID to inform the user that everything worked as expected. Here is the contents of the entire file. There we have that. And what I want to now do is let's move on to creating a new pet. And we're going to leave that there. All right, let's commit all this stuff. Okay, and that's pushed up as well. And I think we are good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and call it for a day. We are only a couple minutes over from my normal sort of scheduled stream time. Today being Wednesday means one more stream this week. We have tomorrow morning, starting around 9:30 a.m. in the morning, same as today. We are going to continue working on the insert lessons and then sort of move on to the next CRUD if we finish those. So we'll continue working on all of this. Anyways, I hope that you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.